Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere unexpectedly damp, endlessly repetitive, and deeply underappreciated. Welcome to the ancient Roman world of public water maintenance. You are a fountain keeper. That's right. Not a general, not a gladiator, not even a mosaic layer. Just you, a lowly worker tasked with the same tedious rituals every day to make sure Romans can splash their faces, fill their jars, or dramatically wash their hands in public while making eye contact with strangers. Picture it. The sky is still black. The stars haven't blinked out yet, and the streets of Rome are quiet for once. Well, quiet for Rome. You shuffle out of your bedroll, joints cracking like old clay, because of course the fountain keeper lives next to the fountain. You sleep behind the stone wall in a cramped alcove that smells like lime dust, olive oil, and wet rope. You dreamed of fish again. You always dream of fish. You wrap your woolen cloak tighter around yourself and fumble for your keys heavy, iron things that jingle like doom. The city isn't awake yet, but the aqueduct is always awake. Somewhere far away, a stream has already started its long journey toward you, twisting through channels carved by engineers who never once thought about cleaning what they built. And the best part, your job starts before anyone thanks you, before any senator strolls by in his ridiculous sandals, before some toga-wearing child tosses a coin in the basin and makes a wish that you'll be the one to clean it out later. It all starts here, in silence. In the cold, you probably won't survive this job until retirement. There is no retirement, but the water must flow. That's the rule. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your feet make that familiar slosh crunch as you pass the edge of the fountain's catchment area. Always damp, always just a little moldy. The marble rim gleams in the moonlight, water trickling over it in perfect silence, but you know the pipes underneath are anything but calm. You take out the small oil lamp, flick the flint, and it spits to life. The flickering glow reveals your bucket, your rags, and your scraping hook. Your sacred tools of the trade. None of them are glamorous. One was once a kitchen spoon. Another is made from the rib of something. You try not to ask. First, you crouch near the main valve cap. It's a bronze circle the size of a turtle shell. You've got to open it, but gently too fast, and the pressure could burst the relief pipe like last week. That was a mess, literally. A very wet senator was not pleased. The metal groans. The old aqueduct teeth begin to creak. You mutter a little curse to the water nymphs, just in case. No one believes in them anymore, but it's good manners to pretend. The valve opens halfway, just enough to let the water whisper into the pipes, and you exhale. It's like coaxing a dragon out of bed without getting eaten. The first splash echoes loud in the stillness, then another. The water finds its way through its usual twists and rises, burbling up into the public spout in a thin stream that will grow stronger by dawn. You press your hand against the marble. It's colder than expected. You don't trust that. But you move on. The next hour will be spent patrolling the perimeter. You scan for loose stones, for cracks in the basin, for signs that the plumbing has decided to rebel again. You tug at a vine creeping too close to the stone rim. It hisses as it tears, and you're not convinced it didn't grow an inch overnight. You make a mental note to ask old Septimus, the groundskeeper, to bring his goat again. Vines hate goats. Your lamp sputters. You shake it gently. The olive oil's almost out, and you forgot to refill it last night. Again, you could go back for more, but if you leave now, someone could take a sip from the basin before you've cleared it of yesterday's, let's say, organic contributions. You stay. The darkness thickens. There's something about the quiet before dawn in Rome. You hear rats scrabbling in the distance, a dog coughing in an alley, a coin falling from a balcony, some unlucky dreamer paying for last night's regret. And underneath it all, the slow, stubborn pulse of water. Historians still argue whether the average Roman citizen truly appreciated the network of fountains and aqueducts that threaded their city together. Some say it was taken for granted. Others believe it was a daily miracle. You're too tired to care. All you know is that it's your problem when the miracle breaks. Your hands already smell like limestone, and whatever that smell is that moss makes when it's angry. You take a moment, just one, to sit on the ledge of the dry basin and let the silence press down around you. The stars are fading. Rome is stretching, and soon, your fountain will become a stage. Women shouting at each other over bucket priority, children splashing deliberately too close to passing officials, a man insisting the water tastes less holy than yesterday. But for now, it's just you. You and the flow. The first proper sound of the day isn't birdsong. It's metal grinding against stone as you unlock the intake valve of the Aqua Virgo Rome's reliable, occasionally temperamental aqueduct that somehow hasn't collapsed despite being old enough to have seen Julius Caesar in diapers. The intake box is cleverly hidden behind a false wall near the northern arch. You duck beneath a crumbling lintel, breath caught in your throat not because of reverence, but because something definitely died in here recently. The stink is somewhere between damp dog and expired cheese. You grip the key, one of 3 carved from iron and shaped like a miniature trident, and jam it into the ancient lock. It sticks. As usual, you jiggle it like you're apologizing. Finally, it gives, and the slab swings open with a sigh. Inside, the bronze valve sits like an angry turtle. Its surface is green with age and calcium, and the little inscriptions around the rim, some imperial, some nonsense, look like they've been gnawed on by time itself. You kneel, muttering the unofficial fountain keeper's creed. If it's not leaking, don't ask why. Your job is to open the valve just enough to let a steady stream flow into the sub-reservoir beneath the street, where gravity will do its magic and feed the fountain's gentle spurt. Too little, and the fountain wheezes. Too much, and the lower basin floods. And suddenly, the nearby baker is yelling that his flour's wet again. You grip the rusted handle and turn, slowly. So slowly your knees crack in protest. The bronze squeals, resisting, and for a moment you wonder if today's the day it finally snaps off in your hand. But no. There it goes. With a reluctant gulp, the valve swells open, and water begins its downward path. It always amazes you how the aqueducts work without modern tools. The slope is precise, the angle intentional. Historians still argue whether Roman engineers used tools we've lost or simply guessed really well. Either way, it's the kind of math that gives you a headache just thinking about it. You prefer instinct, feel, and listening. You close your eyes and let the water's hiss whisper to you. That subtle gurgle, good. That low growl, less good. A sharp sputter, concerning. You place your hand on the pipe just above the joint and wait. Is it warm? Cold? Trembling? You swear the water has moods, and today it feels petty. Back at the fountain, you hear the first echoes of sandals slapping against stone. Someone's up early. Maybe a merchant. Maybe a drunk. Maybe the guy who thinks the fountain spirits talk to him through the plumbing. You once found him licking the spout? You wish that memory didn't exist. The intake chamber drips in the corners. A spider lowers itself from the beam above, pausing to judge your posture. You nod back, respectfully. It's going to be a long day. You can feel it in your shoulders. As you lock the valve chamber again, you catch sight of an old etching on the stone ledge. It's faint, weathered, but you've traced it so often it's committed to your muscle memory. A crude drawing of a man with a bucket and a scowl, probably carved by a bored predecessor. You don't know who he was, but you whisper a quiet "me too" every time you pass. You head back out into the street, the wind carrying the scent of baked olives and yesterday's regrets. A cat slinks past your foot like it owns the place, which, to be fair, it probably does. Romans love their cats, especially when they keep the grain stores mouse-free. You pause at the edge of the fountain. The main spout is flowing now, just a gentle arc, catching the first blush of sunrise. You did that. No one will say thank you, but still you did. You fish your fingers along the rim of the outer basin and pull out a few early surprises. A cloth scrap, a broken sandal strap, and a very slimy garum bottle. You hold it at arm's length, grimacing. Someone's going to be looking for that. Or maybe not. People forget things at the fountain all the time, jars, teeth, babies once. That was a weird morning. There's a fringe belief you've heard muttered in taverns that fountain valves are protected by underground spirits, little water demons who get cranky if you don't greet them with a copper coin or a rude joke. You've never seen one, but you still toss a button into the chamber once a week? You're not that brave. You head to the storage box near the colonnade. It's got your reserve tools, half of them bent. One wrapped in a rag soaked with mystery fluid. You pick out a fresh rag for polishing the basin edges, not for the water. For the look, people like clean edges, even if they're going to sit on them and leave behind parts of yesterday's lunch. Before the sun crests the rooftops, you've got to finish prepping, which means unblocking the secondary overflow drain under the lion's mouth, which means lying flat on your stomach and reaching your arm into something that's possibly been sentient since Caligula. You get into position, cold marble, damp elbows, one arm and up to your shoulder. You wiggle your fingers around. There it is, a wad of reeds, wet wool, and something that squishes too easily. You yank. It comes free with a slurp, and you roll away. Triumphant and disgusted, you lay back, staring up at the stone sky of Roman architecture, arches, columns, all so grand. And yet, none of those builders stuck around to clean the drains. You close your eyes for 1 second. Then someone yells, "The water's too warm." From 3 streets away, you sigh, crack your neck, and sit up. Daylight's coming, and so are the complaints. You crouch at the basin's edge, rolling up your sleeves like a gladiator preparing for battle, except your opponent isn't armed. It's just slime. Endless, ancient, defiant slime. The kind that clings to the white marble like a toddler to a parent's leg, only stickier, slimier, and somehow vaguely smug. You dip your scraping hook into the shallow channel where the water meets the stone lip and start working from left to right, just like every other morning. The motion is muscle memory now. Scrape, flick, rinse, scrape, flick, rinse. Sometimes you hum to break the monotony, but not today. Today, the slime has grown bold. A fresh bloom of green has colonized the north side of the basin overnight, spiraling like it had architectural plans. You glance up, briefly wondering if moss can hold grudges. You once read that certain Roman bathhouses imported volcanic stone because moss wouldn't grow on it. Historians still argue whether that was for hygiene or aesthetics. You sigh and dig in. The scraping hook is technically a repurposed meat skewer, slightly bent, with the tip flattened to a wedge. You found it in a tavern trash pile 3 years ago and never looked back. The official bronze scraper provided by the Aqua Curator snapped in half after 2 weeks. So now it's mounted on your wall as a cautionary tale, or possibly an art piece, depending on who's visiting. The water sloshes gently as you move along the basin. A small current tickles your knuckles. You pause to watch it swirl around your wrist like it's teasing you, then abruptly spit out a clump of bird droppings right next to your sleeve. Perfect aim, which reminds you it's time for the bird check. You lean back, shielding your eyes against the sun now crawling over the terracotta rooftops. Up there, on the arch above the lion's spout, sit 3 pigeons, bold, fat, judging. One of them puffs out its feathers, shifts its weight, and drops a gift directly into the overflow trough. You stare in disbelief. That was a personal attack. You climb onto the low step beside the fountain and start the delicate operation of pigeon deterrence, which mostly involves waving a stick and muttering curses in a language no one speaks anymore. You once tried hanging reflective bronze strips to scare them away. They used them as mirrors. You even built a scarecrow out of wine jugs and a senator's discarded cloak. They nested in it. It's a war you'll never win. But still you fight. Back on the ground, you rinse your hands in the side runoff, careful to avoid the thick green patches. They look like they might talk back. Your rag is already soaked. Your knees are wet, and you've just started. Scraping the basin isn't just about slime. It's also about pride. A clean basin gleams in the sunlight. Visitors lean over it, squinting at their reflections. Children drop pebbles in and giggle at the ripples. Philosophers linger, pretending to ponder fate while clearly watching their own noses. And you made it sparkle. You reach a familiar dent in the marble rim. You always pause here. Not because it's special, but because this is where you once found a small bronze coin, lodged in a crack so tightly wedged, you nearly broke a finger getting it out. A coin older than you, maybe older than the empire. You kept it. It sits in a folded cloth under your bedroll. You don't believe in omens, but sometimes it warms your hand at night. You begin scraping again, trying to ignore the ache building in your shoulder. The moss here resists like wet parchment. You grit your teeth and press harder. The hook slips. Your knuckle cracks against the marble. You curse softly. Not the kind that offends Jupiter, just the kind that's meant for moss. You sit back and press your thumb to the scrape, A little blood. You dip it in the water, not the part people drink from, and sigh. There's a quirky belief you once overheard a street poet recite that the gods judge you not by what you build, but what you clean. You're pretty sure he was drunk, but still it stuck. You pick up the rag again. Down the street, a group of women begin approaching, baskets balanced on hips, chatter already bouncing off the stones. You've got maybe 3 minutes before they arrive. 3 minutes before requests start pouring in like water from a burst pipe. Can you make the water colder? Why is it so loud today? My cousin swears your fountain turned her hair green. That last one might not have been your fault. You quickly polish the rim, wiping away the last streaks of slime, flicking a beetle into the bushes with your thumbnail. It's not perfect, but it's enough. You smooth your palms along the marble, admiring the way the surface catches the sun. Clean, crisp, almost reflective. Of course, within an hour it'll be back to sticky footprints and stray grape peels, but for now it gleams. You lean against the wall and pretend to look casual. The women arrive. They smile politely, then step directly into your fresh polished zone with zero hesitation. One sets her bucket down with a thud that echoes in your soul. The fountain, you think, is alive, but not in the way temples are. Not sacred, not divine. It's more like a creature, tired, overused, frequently insulted, and almost always overlooked. Like you, and you're its keeper. It's humble, elbow deep in scum, glorified janitor of a keeper. But when the sun hits the marble just right, when the water flows in a perfect arc, when the basin sparkles beneath a blue Roman sky, it's almost beautiful. You sniff. The moss is plotting something again. You duck behind the column to avoid being spotted again. It's not that you're hiding, it's that you're strategically delaying engagement with the daily swarm of locals who treat the public fountain like a debating arena, confession booth, and sometimes a laundry line. Because as soon as they see you, it begins. Sure enough, old Livia spots your sandal poking out. There he is. She bellows, pointing with a dripping ladle. Ask him why the water tastes like bronze today. You sigh and step out. Morning, you say, knowing full well no one will respond. The gossip at the fountain is more consistent than the sunrise. And somehow, you are always the subject or at least the scapegoat. Every burp of the aqueduct, every odd glug from the lion mouth spout, every lost earring or cracked jug gets blamed on you, as if the plumbing beneath Rome doesn't stretch for miles through mud, tombs, and probably a few forgotten temples. But no, it must be the guy with the mop. You stand quietly as the familiar chaos unfolds. To your left, two young mothers are arguing about who arrived first. One is clutching twins, the other a goose. Don't ask, the goose seems equally annoyed. To your right, a retired centurion is explaining again how the design of this fountain is inferior to the ones near the forum, which he helped build. He says this every morning. You've memorized his speech. It includes hand gestures. You begin organizing the buckets into a loose queue, more for your own sanity than theirs. One child immediately disrupts it by kicking over a pot and chasing a pigeon. You nod in respect. That's a solid tactic. The philosopher arrives around now, right on cue. He's draped in linen, barefoot, and smelling faintly of bay leaves and old wine. You don't know his name, but you've mentally nicknamed him Drizzle because he never quite rains. He just hovers around, muttering about shadows and meaning. He points to the ripple in the basin and says, "You see, that is the nature of time." You give him your usual reply. Don't drink directly from the lion's mouth. It's been cleaned, but only barely. He nods solemnly, as if you've confirmed a prophecy. Meanwhile, a baker's apprentice slips on the wet marble and lands flat on his back. His boss yells, his tray of rolls explodes, and a street dog joyfully snatches one and runs for it. You casually nudge a broken roll into the gutter. That's how you keep the ants off the rim. Some historians argue whether fountains like this were truly communal gathering places, or simply practical water sources with extra flair. You'd argue it's both, and also the city's unofficial complaint center, theater district, and dating agency. You've witnessed confessions, proposals, and one memorable public breakup that involved a flying sandal and the phrase, "You kissed her at my uncle's funeral." Through it all, you stand by with your bucket and your rag, smiling vaguely, pretending you're deaf. It helps. A senator's maid steps up and gives you a tight smile. Her hair is pinned in gold combs, and her sandals are suspiciously clean for someone who accidentally passed by. She speaks softly. My master says the water pressure was lower yesterday. You nod slowly, as if considering this deeply. Yes, you say. The pressure was contemplating its place in the world. She blinks. You've confused her. That's the goal. Still, you make a mental note to check the main sluice valve later. The Aqua Virgo's moods can be subtle, and you'd rather not have an urgent scroll delivered to your supervisor because someone's bath took 3 extra minutes to fill. Back near the basin, one of the children is pretending to baptize his sister with a wooden spoon. She doesn't seem to mind. You've learned not to intervene unless someone starts bleeding or climbing the statue, which has happened twice. You move to the smaller overflow spout to check the side grate. People sometimes dump things here they don't want trace letters. Hair, love, charms. This morning it's a small wax tablet with a scratched out message. You tilt it toward the sun, trying to read the impressions. Deliver him into shames. By his own fountain. You blink, then shrug. Could be poetry, could be petty curses. Either way, it's above your pay grade. You toss it into your discard bucket, next to the chewed fig rind and a mystery spoon that definitely wasn't yours. You wipe your hands on your tunic just as a small, wrinkled man in ceremonial garb shuffles forward with exaggerated dignity. He draws a small crowd. Locals know him as Priest of the Minor Waters, which sounds impressive until you realize he's basically the religious representative of puddles. He nods at you solemnly. All is well with the flow today. You resist the urge to salute. Yes, priest. No frogs, no red streaks. One minor slime uprising. But I crush the rebellion. He doesn't smile, but he does hand you a small folded fig leaf containing 2 olives. A peace offering. You nod in thanks, tuck them into your satchel, and wonder if that counts as your breakfast. By now, the crowd has begun to thin. The philosopher wanders off. The centurion finishes his monologue and vanishes in a slow cloud of disapproval. Livia finally stops demanding an explanation for the metallic taste after you suggest it may be a sign from Mercury himself. That shuts her up for the day. You are, briefly, alone again. You take the opportunity to perch on the far ledge, stretch your back, and stare into the rippling water. For a moment, it's peaceful, almost meditative. The way the sunlight bounces off the basin wall, the hush of the wind through cypress trees nearby, the distant sound of a lyre being tuned somewhere across the plaza. Then someone behind you shouts, "Who threw a dead rat in the cistern?" You close your eyes, count to 5. The public is awake again. You stand motionless, staring at the water, willing it to answer the very reasonable question someone just screamed behind you. Who threw a dead rat in the cistern? Because if the rat was thrown last night, it's technically not your problem. But if it was this morning, well, congratulations! You've just inherited rodent retrieval duty. You pivot slowly, like a statue reluctantly returning to flesh. And there it is, floating near the rim of the upper pool like a soggy gray ship. The rat. Its legs stick out like it died mid-lunge. Its tail trails dramatically in the current. You could almost imagine it went down fighting. Wonderful, you mutter, retrieving your rodent tongs, which are actually barbecue tongs you stole from a bathhouse trash pile years ago. Every fountain keeper knows that job survival means creative tool theft. The crowd has already begun murmuring. Someone suggests it's an omen. Another swears it's the work of thieves trying to poison the neighborhood. A boy in the back cheers. Best fountain day ever. And you note that face for later. He looks like a future pipe stuffer. You lean over and fish the rat from the water. It's heavier than expected, probably soaked with shame. You hold it at arm's length, trying not to breathe through your nose, and drop it into your waste bucket with a wet plop. The water will have to be drained now, just enough to clear out anything contaminated, which means shutting off the main valve, flushing the outflow trough, and possibly praying to 12 minor gods of sanitation. It's going to be that kind of day. You take a rag, wipe down the lion mouth spout, and mutter, "You couldn't have warned me." The carved lion, eternally mid-roar, offers no response. He never does. You suspect he judges you. You twist the drainage valve near the base hidden under the oldest fig tree root in the square and watch as the basin begins to empty with a slow, reluctant swirl. This is going to take a while. And worse, It exposes your true enemy, the pigeons, at least 7 of them. They descend the moment the water drops below knee height, hopping along the slick marble and pecking at invisible specks. You swat at them with your rag. One flaps indignantly onto the statue's head and looks down on you like a disapproving uncle. You sigh. The pigeon problem is significant. Historians still argue whether Romans had systematic methods of bird control or whether they just gave up entirely and embraced the bird poop as ambiance. Based on your daily battles, you suspect the latter. You've tried it all. Hanging copper discs. The birds played with them. Burning vinegar near the rim just made the fountain smell like angry salad. One time, you smeared goose fat on the ledge. Don't ask where you got it, and they slid off like little feathery sleds. For a day, then they adapted. You saw one wear a fig leaf for grip. You even enlisted help from that eccentric Greek inventor who insisted he could build a hydraulic pigeon deterrent. It turned out to be a ceramic duck that squeaked when wet. The pigeons nested inside it. You named their chick Gladius. With the basin drained, you grab your stiff, bristled brush and kneel inside. This is deep, clean territory, now scrubbing the mosaic tiles, prying out coins, scraping algae from crevices. You find 1 copper coin, stamped crooked, a child's marble, half of a wooden comb, a small clay figurine with no head. You hold up the figurine and murmur, "Same, buddy." Then gently place it in your keepsake pouch. You've got a collection of these lost little tokens from the belly of the fountain. You don't know why. Maybe it's your way of proving the water notices things, even if people don't. As you scrape near the center of the basin, you pause to inspect the grout. A small hairline crack, like a lightning bolt, runs between 2 blue tiles. It's subtle, but dangerous. Water will find it. Water always finds a way in. You mark the spot with red chalk and make a mental note to check it again next week, or sooner. If the tiles start to lift, that means real repair work, and repair work means dealing with the aqua curator. And right on cue, a shadow stretches across the rim. You look up. Sandals, expensive ones, with straps that no sane person should wear into a wet plaza. A polished bronze seal glints on the man's belt, scrolls under one arm. The scent of fig cologne and mild disdain wafts from his cloak. You resist the urge to stand. You were in the middle of something. After all, fountain keeper, he says, in the tone of someone who thinks your name is irrelevant. I received reports of floating matter. You raise the tongs slightly, still holding the rat. Handled it. He wrinkles his nose. And the water pressure yesterday afternoon was unsatisfying. You give your best smile, which is really just a polite grimace with bad posture. That's because a child wedged an apricot pit into the secondary valve. Again, he scribbles something onto a wax tablet without breaking eye contact. You wonder if he's drawing a rat. Do remember, he says slowly, that this fountain is visible from 2 minor temples, 3 merchant alleys, and a senator's niece's favorite lunch bench. You nod sagely. That's why I removed the second rat. He pauses. There was a second. You nod again. Slower this time, like you're testing how long he can hold his breath. He walks away without another word. You exhale. You glance back into the empty basin. The pigeons have returned. Of course they have. You chase off the pigeons with your rag again, this time with a little more flair, like you're performing some ceremonial rite of irritation. The birds flap up in protest. One squawks so dramatically you wonder if it's trying to unionize. You mutter something unrepeatable about feathers and stew, then return to your tools. Now that the fountain's drained, and the last bits of pigeon offense have been cleared away, it's time for the part of the job no one wants to talk about, the clogs. You shuffle toward the lion's mouth. No, not the sculpted one. The real lion's mouth, the catchment tunnel that swallows overflow and gurgles it deep into the underground matrix of Roman water management. That's where the worst of it gathers. The bits that don't float. The mysteries. The stone hatch is cold and slick beneath your hands as you pry it open. A breath of stale air wafts out, thick with coppery wetness, and the unmistakable scent of old sandals. You pull a small oil lamp from your satchel and light it. The flame flickers uncertainly. Even it seems reluctant to enter. You descend into the tunnel, ducking your head, holding the lamp low. It's narrow here, just enough room for one person with questionable decision-making skills. Your sandals slosh through ankle-deep muck. The walls weep constantly. You once joked that this tunnel cries more than you do. It wasn't really a joke. The runoff channel is designed with little side grates to catch debris before it flows into the main sewer system. In theory, in practice, they catch some debris and hide the rest. You kneel at the first grate and begin poking with your long hook. Something shifts beneath the surface. You brace yourself. Could be a stick. Could be a wig. Could be a cursed tablet again. Rome is unpredictable that way. You drag out a slimy mass of fabric, a tunic fragment, maybe, or a curtain. Wrapped inside is a bundle of hair. You blink. Definitely a wig. You hold it up to the lamp. It's blonde, matted, and tangled with olive leaves. Fashionable. 5 emperors ago, someone clearly wanted this gone. You tuck it into your discard bag. That'll be fun to explain to the laundry slaves later. At the next grate, the hook hits something harder. You scrape at it, twist, and finally pull out what you hope is just a bone. A long, thin one, possibly animal, probably animal. You stare at it for a long second. Definitely not a senator's. Too practical. Historians still argue whether Rome's water system ever carried human remains by accident or design. Officially, it's unthinkable. Unofficially, you've pulled out enough ribs, jawbones, and once a toe ring attached to an actual toe that you keep your mouth shut, especially when the aqua curator's in town. Further in, you find what you're actually looking for, the clog. It's a wad of reeds, hairpins, bits of fabric, and something that looks like a soggy scroll. The pressure behind it is pushing water through tiny gaps, causing the whole mass to gurgle ominously. You give the hook a firm twist and the whole thing belches. You jump back as water floods forward, splashing up your shins and dousing your knees. The lamp flickers dangerously, and for one horrible second, the flame catches on a slick trail of oil floating on the surface. You jerk the lamp away just in time. No fire, just an angry water burp. You let out a shaky breath. I hate clogs. You mutter. You poke around the loosened debris and find more coins, 3 bronze, 1 lead, and a tiny silver token shaped like a heart. People throw all sorts of things into the fountain, hoping the water will carry their wishes somewhere holy, or at least away. One local midwife swears that placing a small silver charm into the fountain ensures a pain-free birth. You've never seen it work, but you've pulled out a surprising number of tiny feet, hands, and womb-shaped medallions from the lower grates. You keep the ones not too corroded. Sometimes you wonder if the wishes stick to you. As you backtrack toward the surface, something catches your eye. A small flicker of color wedged in a wall crack. You dig it out gently and reveal a painted clay token, faded but still visible. A blue fish, etched with symbols you can't quite read. It hums faintly warm in your hand. You hold it up, puzzled. A children's charm. A temple relic. You've seen stranger things. You tuck it into your tunic. You'll show it to that weird old man who sells fig cakes and knows about ancient symbols. Last time you asked, he told you the mosaic in your fountain was probably cursed by ex-lovers. You sort of hope he's right. Back above ground. You blink in the daylight, squinting as the sun catches the water just now beginning to refill. You've redirected the stream through the secondary channel while you clean the main basin. A smart move. You occasionally have them. A small boy is standing beside your tools. He's poking your rag with a stick. Did you find any bones today? He asks, bright-eyed. You stare at him. No, you lie. Just a very angry wig. He nods, satisfied. You look up toward the steps near the basilica. That man is back, the one who shows up some days, stands at the fountain, and watches without drinking. You've tried to ask his name. He only ever says, "It's not for me." You don't press him. There are 100 kinds of thirst in Rome. With the water now rushing cleanly, the lion mouth spout resumes its steady stream. You sit at the far edge, your knees soaked, your gloves dripping, your dignity somewhere beneath the mud. The pigeons return. Of course, one lands on your shoulder like it pays rent. You glance at the discarded bucket holding the mystery scroll, the blonde wig, and a handful of cursed jewelry. And you think, this is someone's normal. This is my normal. The water flows, the people drink, the birds bathe, and you silent, unthanked, elbow deep in the city's secrets. Keep the system running. And maybe that's enough. You sit cross-legged at the edge of the basin, gnawing on a piece of cold bread that's exactly as exciting as it sounds. It's cracked and dry from your satchel, smeared with whatever olives didn't make it to the bottom, and tastes vaguely of limestone. Still, it's food. Barely. Your fingers are too wet to eat properly, and the bread leaves crumbs in the folds of your tunic. You sigh, chew, and stare into the water as it gradually refills, the stream strengthening with each glug from the lion mouth spout. The crowd has thinned for now, just a few scattered souls. A laundry woman wringing cloth with her teeth, a delivery boy sleeping upright with a jug still balanced on his shoulder, and the temple acolyte from down the street, who always blesses the fountain, then mutters something rude under his breath just to be safe. You should feel relieved. The basin is clean, the clogs are cleared, the pigeons are temporarily gone, and the rat is no longer your concern. But your stomach has that familiar tug of something's not right. You take another bite. Chew slower. Let your gaze drift up the aqueduct arc that shadows part of the plaza. That's when you see it. A discoloration. Not in the marble, but in the stream itself. Subtle. A faint tinge of something just off in the hue. A rusty blush swirling inside the clear water like a wine stain trying to hide in a linen shirt. You toss the rest of your bread to a nearby dog and rise, heart thudding. Not again. You hurry to the access hatch near the secondary trough and crouch low, palm pressed to the lip of the intake spout. The water's cooler than it should be, and there's a tang to the scent. Not quite blood. Not quite iron, but definitely not just spring water. You squint. The tinge is spreading, faint, but undeniable. It's times like these when you remember the worst week of your career, the one when the aqueduct upstream cracked during a minor quake and started leaching minerals from the soil. The water turned the color of old copper coins, and every person who drank from the basin claimed their tongue went numb. The city blamed the fountain. Naturally, no one blamed the mountain. You close the valve slightly, just enough to slow the flow, and sit back, chewing your nail. It could be a trick of light, or some fool pouring dye down the hillside again. Last time that happened, it was a group of bored students trying to color code the water gods. They failed artfully and were banned from 4 temples. You grab your test ladle, just a carved shell tied to a stick, and scoop a sample. You let it settle. The water's not red, not truly, but there's a particulate shimmer in the sun. Something not right. You mutter, please don't be poisoned again. Because yes, that's happened too. Historians still argue whether enemy sabotage of Roman aqueducts was real or just a public excuse for maintenance failures. You'd bet 3 months of soggy bread that some of it was real. You've seen the hidden wells. You've patched tunnels carved suspiciously wide by hands not wearing engineering gloves. And you found the whisper scrolls, like the one you keep tucked into the back of your personal pouch, just a sliver of vellum, discovered years ago under a maintenance hatch, with only one sentence etched into it: if the water forgets, we remember. No one's ever explained that one, but you remember it every time the stream starts acting strange. You tuck the ladle back into your satchel and make a decision. Time to check the upstream valve. You take the alley beside the fountain, following the narrow gutter trail that connects the basin to the higher catchment trench. Carved into the slope behind the temple wall, the path winds upward past sleeping goats, a charcoal vendor snoring against his wheelbarrow, and a statue of Minerva whose face has been rubbed smooth by centuries of hopeful touches. The intake valve sits behind a gate you installed yourself, a woven lattice of reeds and copper wire designed to catch trash or people. You're not picky. And there it is, a torn bundle of fabric caught in the mesh. It's dripping something dark. You crouch, gently prod it. It unfurls slightly, revealing what looks like part of a ceremonial robe soaked through and leaking color. You don't touch it barehanded. You use your hook, dragging it to the side, revealing a mass of petals, no leaves, crushed herbs. A handful of copper shavings. Someone dumped a ritual offering upstream. Not uncommon. But this one wasn't sanctioned, and it's seeping directly into the source. You scoop a handful of the water, rub it between your fingers. Gritty, Bitter. You should report this, but you won't because the aqua curator will blame you for not preventing it. Again, last time you reported a dye leak, they sent an assistant who asked you if water was supposed to feel wet. So you do what every good fountain keeper does. You fix it yourself. You drag out the soaked robe and stuff it into your waste bucket. You lift the herbs with your hook and fling them into the alley for the goats to investigate. You open the flush channel, a tiny sluice line carved beneath the intake that you discovered by accident 3 years ago, and let it run wide. Letting fresh water bypass the tainted stretch, the tinge will vanish in a few hours. No one will know, except you. And maybe the statue of Minerva. Her face may be worn down, but she sees more than people think. You descend the slope, wiping your hands on your tunic, heart still racing. By the time you return to the plaza, the basin is refilling with clear, sweet water again. You sit on the rim and dip your fingers in. Cold, clean, safe enough. The crowd has returned. A woman blesses her jar before filling it. A boy rinses his sandals. The philosopher is back, now muttering about water memory. And no one notices the crisis that almost happened. You smile faintly because the water forgets, but you don't. You're halfway through reorganizing the wooden ladle shelf, a task as thankless as alphabetizing clouds when a familiar metallic plink echoes across the square, then another, then 3 in quick succession. You sigh. The coin tossers have arrived. You peek over the basin's rim and sure enough, a growing group of locals, travelers, and one woman in shoes far too clean to be from around here are queuing up to fling offerings into the fountain. Each coin arcs through the air with theatrical flair, splashing into the water with a sound that makes your stomach knot. Not because of the noise, but because you know exactly where those coins end up. At the bottom of the main intake channel, the one you just cleaned. May Fortuna favor my grain prices, one man mutters as he lobs a heavy silver coin into the shallow pool. You mutter back, may you miss next time. He doesn't hear you. Historians still debate whether coin tossing was originally a sacred act or simply a way to show off. You suspect it started as one and quickly devolved into the other. There are so many coins down there, you could probably finance your own temple, a small one, to a minor god, perhaps Plumbus, deity of back pain and mop handles. The woman in the clean shoes steps forward, she whispers a wish, kisses the coin, and sends it spinning end over end into the water where it ricochets off the lion spout and disappears into the drain with an oddly triumphant splash. She smiles. You feel tired. Later today, you'll have to drain that section again and clear the coin grate before it jams up the works. Again, it always does. You've even made a tool for it. The coin fork. It's a long iron rod with a bent tip, forged specifically to scoop up wishes people don't realize will eventually clog the system. You sometimes wonder what happens to the wishes. Do they float for a while, happy and full of hope, then sink with the sediment, and end up trapped in lime deposits under the city? Or maybe they drift out to sea, past Ostia, where Neptune either grants them or laughs. You once tried collecting a few of the coins, polishing them, setting them aside, but that felt wrong. Like stealing confessions. Now, they go into the curator's vault, or the temple coffers, or someone's dinner fund. You don't ask questions. You rise and begin your second pass along the basin edge, rag in hand, removing the latest splashes and smudges. You find a smear of something orange, probably from that one food vendor who insists melted carrot paste is good for the skin. You've seen people use worse. You've seen someone wash their shoes in the basin and argue that leather deserves blessings. At the west spout, a boy leans over to toss a tiny object. You stop him mid-motion. What is it? He hesitates, then opens his palm. It's a figurine. Clay. Rough. A little horse. With no tail. Lucky, he says. For my brother. You stare at it. It's clearly handmade. Probably by the boy. You sigh and step aside, right side of the basin, less chance of clogging. He grins and drops it in with care. You watch it drift, tumble, and settle in a shallow curve behind a tile chip. At least it's small. You head back towards the base of the statue, where someone has started carving letters again. You recognize the style. Crude, deliberate, done with a small knife. Probably that stonemason's apprentice who always looks nervous around temples. You run your fingers over the fresh etching. LVM. Love. or initials. You smooth it over with your sleeve, not because you care about graffiti, but because when it accumulates, people start treating the fountain like a message board. And you already have enough people whispering into the lion's mouth like it's an oracle. You hear footsteps behind you, soft, deliberate. It's the old man again, the watcher. Same gray cloak, same quiet stare. He doesn't speak, just stands at the edge of the fountain and looks at the water like he's waiting for it to change color. You glance at him, still not thirsty. He doesn't reply. You return to polishing. Minutes pass. Then he says, "This fountain saved my sister once." You pause. Look up. He hasn't moved. She fell sick. He continues, voice barely above the breeze. Fever. The physician said nothing could be done, but she drank from here every day, and she lived. You study him. How long ago? He exhales. 50 years. You nod slowly, still remember the taste. He smiles. Tastes the same. You return to scrubbing, softer now. The edge of your rag trails along the stone with gentle rhythm, catching tiny flecks of dust, lost dreams, and the occasional ent. You wonder what your fountain will be 50 years from now. If it'll still be here, if someone else will be tending it, if they'll curse the coins like you do, or just accept them as part of the job. A sharp squeal cuts through your thoughts. A girl nearby just dropped a bronze bangle into the basin. She shrieks. The water is too deep for her to reach. You step in without a word, slide your arm into the pool, feel around. Cool, smooth, then metal. You lift it gently. It's delicate, shaped like a serpent biting its tail. You hand it back. She gasps and runs off. No thanks. No hesitation. Of course. You wring out your sleeve and chuckle. Another anonymous miracle. Just as you return to organizing the scrubbing rags by wetness, not usefulness, because that's what your life has become, you hear it. The clatter of boots, too clean, too confident, and far too symmetrical to belong to anyone who actually works for a living. The aqua curator is back. You look up. This time, he's not alone. Trailing behind him is a young scribe in a tunic so white it's practically bragging. He carries a stack of wax tablets and an ink-stained quill that's been tucked behind his ear in a way that screams, "I don't do manual labor." You instantly dislike him. On principle, the curator stops at the fountain's edge, stares down into the water with the same reverence most people reserve for divine statues or particularly good cheese. You wait, I'm told. He begins slowly. That the lion spout produced a sputter yesterday. You nod once. Correct. He waits, expecting an apology. You give him nothing. He sighs through his nose. This is a critical fountain. It lies on a three-temple axis. Priests walk by here. Senators walk by here. Their nephews walk by here. You suppress the urge to ask if he means actual nephews, or just people pretending to be nephews for tax purposes. Instead, you say, "Sputter's gone. Flow's been corrected." The scribe scribbles something onto a wax tablet, mouthing the words like they're dramatic. The curator circles the basin, inspecting your recent polished job with the enthusiasm of someone judging a fruit market by sniffing the lemons. He stops, points at a faint water ring near the lion's mouth. What is this? You glance at it. Condensation. He frowns. It looks messy. You dip your rag in the water and, without breaking eye contact, wipe it clean in a single, slow motion. The scribe wrists faster. The curator clicks his tongue and moves on. He inspects the catchment trough, the basin edges, the overflow pipe. All things you personally cleaned less than 2 hours ago. He says nothing. That's how you know it's acceptable. Then he makes the mistake you were hoping for. He peers too closely into the secondary valve housing and gets a splash of rebound mist from a poorly angled spout. Not much. Barely a sprinkle. But to someone who likely bathes in rosewater, disaster. He flinches, straightens. Why was I not informed this spout is defective? You shrug. It's not defective. It just hates you. The scribe gasps softly. You consider apologizing, but you're tired. And this is the 4th inspection this month. The curator clears his throat like he's preparing to recite law. Instead, he says, the governor's niece will be visiting this plaza in 3 days. She's fond of fountains. I expect this one to sparkle. You resist the urge to ask whether she wants it to sparkle metaphorically or literally. Instead, you nod. He adjusts his cloak, mutters something about standards, and turns to leave. The scribe hesitates, offers you a tight, awkward smile. then scrambles after him like a duckling in sandals. You exhale loudly. Then you mutter, "Sparkle." You turn back to the fountain and give it an exaggerated wink. You heard him. You're supposed to sparkle. Try not to sneeze on the next dignitary. As if in protest, the lion spout burbles dramatically. You gather your tools and move toward the side gutter. Time to check the old lead patch again. It hasn't leaked in months, but after the curator's visit, you've learned to anticipate trouble, like a rainstorm just waiting for someone to wash their laundry. The gutter smells faintly of crushed herbs and stale fig water. You pry back the stone lip and inspect the pipe seam. The patch is holding. For now, you press your palm against it. Feel no vibration. Still, you know the materials are old, older than most emperors. You make a note to reinforce it tomorrow with wax and cloth strips. Your secret blend. Historians rarely talk about fountain maintenance. They talk about design, about aqueduct math, about glorious arches and domes. They don't talk about leaking pipes, angry pigeons, or what happens when the overflow channel backs up during festival week and floods the baker's alley with foot-washing water. You were there. You got blamed. You return to the basin rim and sit for a moment. Your tools hang from your belt like sad little medals. Tongs, hook, rag, ladle, brush, patchcloth, and your prized coin fork. Each one earned through necessity, each one stained with the things better left undescribed. A few children run past, laughing. One splashes water toward the other and gets a faceful in return. The ripple it creates travels all the way across the basin and tugs at the lion's reflection like it's blinking. You stare at the water for a long moment. Then you see her, a young woman in a faded cloak, kneeling at the far end of the fountain. She lowers a jar into the water carefully, then whispers something to the surface. It's soft, private. You can't hear it. But she touches the water like it's holy. Then she lifts it to her lips, takes a single sip, and smiles. You pretend to look away, but you're watching because moments like that don't come often. Some say the water in Rome flows because of aqueducts. You know better. It flows because someone gets up every day, before the dawn, and fights pigeons and clogs and grumpy officials and still takes the time to polish the rim. Because someone remembers that people believe in this water, even when they don't believe in much else. You stretch your back and wince at the pop in your spine. The sun is dipping now, smearing the sky with tired gold and sleepy shadows. The fountain glows in the dusk. Marble soaked in amber light, water catching fire at its crest before falling again in a quiet hush. Time for night watch. Not every fountain keeper does it. Some go home. Some hand the duty off to a younger apprentice if they're lucky enough to have one. But you're not most keepers. You stay, not out of obligation, not entirely. There's something about the fountain at night. The stillness, the way it breathes. You light your candle and shove it into the brass sconce welded into the fountain's pillar. It flickers nervously, throwing long, dancing shadows that stretch across the wet stone and into the dark beyond the plaza. The sounds change at night, less laughter, more whispers, and footsteps you can't always place. You grab your walking stick, the one you whittled yourself, with the end shaped like a lion's paw, and begin your slow circuit. First stop, the catchment wall. You check the overflow grate. Clear. Second, the secondary valve under the fig tree. Still sealed. Third, the storage box. Locked. Good. Then you return to the basin and begin the ritual of just sitting there. Candle beside you, stick in hand, listening. The city sleeps with one eye open. Always has. You hear a distant chorus of dogs barking, probably arguing over a fig peel. A door creaks somewhere. A cart rumbles too late to be legal. Rome's laws on curfews are strict, but Romans are creative. Then you hear it, the soft scuff of footsteps approaching. You tighten your grip on the walking stick. A shadow detaches from the alley and steps into view. A man, maybe late 20s, with a face that looks like it's been smiling too long at the wrong people. He's dressed like a night philosopher, loose tunic, rope belt, air of vague sadness. Evening, he says, like he owns the moonlight. You nod. The water's cold. Don't stick your head in. He chuckles and approaches the basin slowly, peering into the rippling reflection. You ever wonder what's in the bottom? Coins, you reply. Regret. Probably someone's lunch. He hums. I've heard things. You shift slightly. People say a lot of things. He nods. They say the emperor once bathed in this fountain. You blink. He didn't. They say there's a tunnel beneath it that leads to the temple vaults. Nope. Just rats. They say the fountain can hear you. You pause. Then say, that one's not completely wrong. He smiles. And then, without a word, turns and walks away. You watch him vanish into the dark, his sandals brushing against the plaza stones like moth wings. You exhale slowly. These people, they come at night. Not just him. You've seen them. Seekers. Drifters, confiders, the kind of people who believe water remembers, the kind who whisper things into the stream that they wouldn't say aloud in the daylight. You once found a woman kneeling by the basin, weeping silently into her reflection. She looked up, eyes swollen, and asked if the fountain forgave. You didn't answer, but you brought her a warm rag. You glance down now. The lion's mouth is still pouring, steady, gentle. A sound that might lull a baby or soothe a dying man. The marble is warm from the day's heat, now slowly cooling. You sit back, sometimes, on quieter nights. You write notes in your own little ledger. Not for the curator, just for yourself. Today's entry might read, rat removed. Dye leak cleaned. Pigeons, temporary ceasefire. Mystery figure with tunnel theory, harmless. Probably, but you don't write anything yet. Instead, you stare into the water and let your mind drift. The stone beneath your legs has a dent where you always sit. Your candle wax has dripped so many times it's left a tiny ridge on the base ledge. Your walking stick fits your hand like it was carved from memory. This fountain, in some way, is part of your body now. You reach over and scoop a little water in your palm. You let it trickle down your wrist, over the cracks in your skin, over the little scar from the time you tried to trap a weasel with a bucket. Long story. You close your eyes and let the coolness sink in. You know, the fountain's every mood. When the water spits instead of streams, when the pipes thrum instead of hum, when the pressure skips like a missed heartbeat, it's more than a system. It's a creature, an ancient one, older than the gossip, older than the city. Maybe you open your eyes and glance around the darkened plaza. All quiet. A cat slips by, tail high, silent as ash. A breeze lifts your cloak. The candle flutters. The stars blink. You lean your head back against the stone column and listen, not just to the fountain, but to what the silence wants to tell you. Sometimes, you think the water does remember, and tonight, it remembers peace. Your eyelids drift low as the candle shrinks, melting into a quiet puddle near your foot. The plaza is nearly silent now, just the soft ripple of the water, and the occasional murmur of a night insect foolish enough to sing in the city. Then, something shifts. A low tap, 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 echoing off the colonnade. You straighten slowly, fingers tightening around your walking stick. This late, that sound could mean anything. A late delivery, a drunk senator's aide looking for a shortcut, or something less explainable. You don't get paid enough for this. You rise to your feet and walk toward the sound. The glow from your half-melted candle casting long, flickering shadows across the stone. The tapping stops. For a beat, it's just you and the sound of your own heartbeat, a little louder than you'd like. Then footsteps. Fast. You swing around just as a blur of movement streaks past the lion-mouth basin. Hey, you bark, louder than you intended. The figure freezes, then steps forward into the candlelight. It's a girl no older than 15, barefoot, cloak too thin for the night air, holding something bundled in her arms. You lower your stick. What are you doing? She bites her lip and clutches the bundle tighter. It's just water, she whispers. I needed clean water. You glance down. A cracked clay jug. Something swaddled inside. Fabric. A sleeping infant. You relax. Step aside. Take what you need. Just don't drop anything. She nods, hurries to the basin, dips the jug with practiced speed, then turns back to you. The spring outside the wall's gone dry. She says, "You're the only one still flowing." You nod, watching her vanish back into the night with her bundle of sleeping life and tired determination. Moments like this make you forget the pigeons, the clogs, the smug inspectors. Because this water you tend it, yes, but it also tends others. You return to your seat beside the basin, relight your candle, and jot a mental note in your invisible night ledger. Unofficial midnight visitor. Respectful. Baby. Adorable. Water still flowing. The rest of the watch passes with minimal excitement. A street performer wanders in around midnight, practices juggling stones until one falls into the overflow trough. You pretend not to notice. A man tries to bathe his feet. You cough loudly and gesture to the "not a bathhouse" sign, which doesn't exist. But your tone makes the point. Then comes your quiet ritual. It's silly. But after the square empties, you do one last sweep. Not for people, for yourself. You walk around the fountain, touch the marble at 5 points the valve casing, the rim near the lion, the drainage lip, the overflow notch, and the chipped corner behind the mosaic, like checkpoints in a dream. Like you're reminding the fountain that you're still here. And finally, you do something you've never admitted to anyone. You wash your own hands. Not a quick rinse, not a slapdash splash. A quiet, deliberate moment. You lower your cracked, tired palms into the main stream. Let the water fall over your fingers. Smooth the calluses and rinse away the ghost of everything you touched: the day oil, mud, regret, sarcasm. The water trickles between your knuckles like forgiveness. You don't look at your reflection. You just listen. There's something sacred about it. The part of the fountain no one sees. You lean forward slightly and whisper not a wish, not a prayer, but just a single word. Thanks. The water gurgles in reply. Not louder, not stranger, just a little more awake than usual. Historians still argue whether Romans had personal relationships with the fountains they used. Some say no, it was just infrastructure. Others believe fountains were seen as minor household spirits, guardians of neighborhoods, caretakers of daily life. You don't care what the historians say. You know your fountain listens. Sometimes it even answers. Just as you lean back again, your foot brushes something solid. You glance down. A small box, wood, worn, water-stained, placed carefully beneath the basin lip. You pick it up and pry it open. Inside, a folded cloth, a tiny copper ring, and a wax-sealed scrap of parchment. No name, no markings, just 3 things that meant something to someone. You close the box and set it on the ledge. You won't disturb it. That's not your place. Offerings aren't always loud. Sometimes they're just quiet hopes in the shape of copper. The candle burns lower. Your body aches, but your spirit oddly feels a little cleaner than usual. You lean back, the water flows, the fountain exhales, and somewhere in the darkness, the city dreams. Somewhere past the 3rd hour of the night, you nod off, just for a moment. You didn't mean to. You're sitting in your usual spot, back against the marble, candle stub flickering beside you, walking stick across your lap. The water flows beside you, soft, steady, soothing. You meant to stay alert, to listen for trouble, for footsteps, for pipes gurgling out of rhythm. But you blink. And when your eyes open again, the plaza looks wrong. Everything is soaked in silver. The moon has crept higher, casting long shadows that turn arches into cathedrals and fig trees into monsters. The fountain glows ghost pale, and it's quiet. Not city quiet. Deep quiet. You glance around, the stillness pressing against your ears. And then, a sound, a whisper. You freeze. It's not a voice exactly, more like a murmur from inside the marble itself, like breath through stone. You lean toward the basin. Nothing. You rub your eyes. Maybe you're too tired. Maybe the cold's getting into your thoughts. Still, you press your palm against the marble base again. Cold. Solid. But the hum is there. You've always said the fountain has moods, but this isn't a mood. It feels personal. You stand slowly, scanning the plaza. Nothing's moving. Even the pigeons are gone. No fig thief, no drunk, no stray dog chasing a fig thief through an alley. Just you, the lion spout, and the gentle rush of ancient water. You shake your head. Get back to your checklist. You head to the catchment trough one last time. Candle wobbling in the wind. You check the valve seals. Test the pressure. It's steady. Perfect. Even. Which is weird. Something's always slightly off. That's the rule. But tonight, balanced. Smooth. As if the aqueduct itself is in a good mood. You crouch and check the edge of the gutter channel. There, tucked into a gap, is another object. Someone left it during the night, and you didn't hear them. You pull it out. It's a small bundle wrapped in linen and twine, carefully folded. You open it slowly, half expecting another rat, but inside, it's a scroll and a coin, an old one. Republic era, real silver. You frown. The scroll is written in a tight, delicate script. You scan it. It's a confession kinda, more like a message to the water itself. A woman apologizing for wronging her sister, asking the fountain to carry her sorrow away. You exhale. Softly, you place the scroll back in the cloth and leave it in the same crack where you found it. Some things aren't meant to be moved. The fountain has already accepted it. You're just a witness. You walk back to the basin. The candle's nearly out. The wax puddle has formed a tiny lake near your sandal. You take one last lap, tracing the basin's outer edge with your fingertips, feeling for cracks, for imperfections, for anything that might hint at tomorrow's problems. Nothing. Just smooth, cool stone. You perch at your usual spot again. The lion spout gurgles quietly beside you, and then the whisper returns. Not from the stone, not from the spout, from the drain. You lean closer, not too close. You've made that mistake before. Once you got a full splash to the eye because a frog decided to leap upstream at the worst moment. But now, you hear something? Like water talking backwards, like a song with no melody, words without shape. You close your eyes and just listen. The sounds swirl around your ears. Familiar patterns emerge. You hear a child laughing, a woman weeping, someone muttering numbers. A faint hum, like a lullaby. You open your eyes. The plaza is still. The whisper fades. You've heard tales, of course. That in the deep hours of night, Roman water carries memories. That if you lean close enough and listen with your soul, the fountain will sing back the stories people leave behind. Some say it's just wind. Others say it's ghosts. You're not sure there's a difference. Historians still argue whether public fountains were sites of ritual beyond their obvious function. Whether they were memory centers, places where Rome's people offloaded their fears and joys and left them to dissolve in the stream. You shrug. You don't need a history scroll to tell you what you already feel in your bones. This fountain remembers. It remembers the man who brought roses every night for a year. It remembers the thief who washed blood from his hands at dawn. It remembers the old woman who whispered stories to it when no one else would listen. It remembers the names carved in secret behind its columns, some still legible, some eroded to dust. And it remembers you. It knows your weight, your gait, your breath, the rhythm of your cleaning, the way you mumble curses when you hit your shin on the basin's chipped corner, the way you hum that one tune when you polish the statue's toes, the way you hesitate each night just before the final check, as if waiting for a reason to stay longer. You are part of this fountain's memory, just as much as the water is part of yours. The candle goes out. You don't relight it. You sit in the dark, the sound of the water wrapping around you like a blanket. You lean your head against the stone. Close your eyes. You are the keeper and the kept. The city stirs before the sun does. You wake with a start not from any noise, but from the sensation of cold marble pressed against your cheek. You must have drifted off sitting up, head resting against the lion's mane carved into the column. Your neck protests. Your back protests louder. Your knees might never speak to you again. You blink against the pre-dawn haze. Rome is gray right now, not the white stone grandeur they show on coins, but the soft, soot-colored veil of a city between breaths. Lanterns flicker in upper windows. Somewhere, a rooster has started its solo. You rise slowly, cracking each joint like you're tuning an old instrument. The fountain is still flowing. It always is. But something about it this morning feels off. You approach the lion spout and crouch, holding your hand just under the stream. The pressure's fine. The temperature's cooler than yesterday, refreshing. Even, but the color, a thin film rides the surface. Barely noticeable unless you know what to look for. A reddish smear. Not bright, not thick. Just present. You mutter, no, not again. You dip your ladle, let it settle, and there it is. A rust-colored tint. And a few odd flecks. You swirl the sample. It leaves a faint halo around the rim. Not dye, not mineral runoff. This feels older. You sniff. Metallic, faintly bitter. You sigh deeply and fetch your emergency toolkit. Not the usual mop and scraper set, the other tools, the ones you keep hidden behind the mosaic panel that no inspector knows about. Within minutes, you've traced the anomaly back to the mid-channel vault, a rarely accessed tunnel that feeds the fountain from an auxiliary line running beneath the old bathhouses. You open the hatch, duck low, and descend. The air is thick and stale. The tunnel walls sweat quietly. You walk in a crouch, light flickering up the curved stone. After 30 paces, you hear it. The coughing, not from a person, from a pipe. That low, stuttering glug-glug hiss you never want to hear. It means the flow is inconsistent, interrupted, contaminated. You round the final bend, and there it is. The auxiliary pipe cracked clean across the seam. Not gushing, not spurting, but weeping. A slow, steady bleed of water that carries rust, sediment, and who knows what from the inner walls. The pipe is ancient. You're amazed it lasted this long. You kneel beside it, and then you see it wedged inside the break. Something strange. You reach with your stick and pry gently. A small object dislodges. You catch it just before it's pulled downstream. A carved wooden charm, worn smooth by water, circular, inscribed on one side, V on the other, nothing. Just a gouge where something used to be. You pocket it carefully. You'll figure that out later. Right now, you seal the crack, not permanently. You don't have the tools or permission, but you patch it with wax cloth and pressed clay, reinforced with a tightly wound strip of linen. It'll hold. Maybe. You backtrack through the tunnel, ducking low, squinting against the thin mist rising from the damp floor. You emerge at the plaza just as the first hint of sunrise touches the upper columns. The light spills down in amber waves. The basin gleams. You hurry to the main valve and slow the flow just slightly, giving the patch time to settle. The reddish tint fades, bit by bit. As clean water pushes through, you watch carefully, holding your breath, waiting for the stream to run clear. It does. You sit back on your heels, hand resting on the rim. A small boy appears from behind the column, rubbing his eyes. You're still here. You nod. Where else would I be? He pads over, barefoot, and peers into the water. It looks clean. It is. He reaches in, scoops a handful, and slurps it noisily. You raise an eyebrow. You're not supposed to drink it like that. He shrugs. Tastes better this way? And with that, he runs off, trailing laughter and wet footprints. You smile, despite yourself. Then movement from the far end of the square. A woman in a merchant's cloak. She kneels by the basin, doesn't drink, doesn't speak, just closes her eyes and rests her fingers lightly in the stream. You pretend not to notice. Some moments aren't meant to be observed directly. As she leaves, she sets a coin on the fountain's edge. Not tossed, not flicked, just placed. It's different from the others. Smaller, thinner, carved with a symbol you don't recognize. You pick it up, weigh it in your palm. It's not Roman, not local, and not meant for your purse, so you tuck it into the stone beside the mosaic, next to that box of copper and cloth someone left days ago. Your little museum of forgotten hopes. The sun climbs higher now. Light spills over the plaza like honey. The fountain sparkles again, just in time, as the sun clears the rooftops and the morning light catches on every droplet pouring from the lion's mouth. The city resumes its usual chaos, polite at first, then increasingly loud, as if someone turned up the volume on humanity itself. The square fills quickly. Barefoot boys race past with bread bags slung over their shoulders. A chorus of laundry women arrive, laughing with the ferocity of warriors returning from battle. A philosopher debates loudly with a baker over whether flour has moral weight. You assume he means actual weight, but the baker is having none of it. And through it all, the water keeps flowing. Because of you. You take one last sweep around the basin, eyes sharp for any rogue fig peels or broken jars left behind in haste. But it's holding steady, clear, calm. The crack in the auxiliary pipe hasn't bled through again yet. And your patch job, despite being made with whatever was in reach, seems to be holding. You allow yourself a small, private smirk. That's when he returns. You spot him out of the corner of your eye. A man in a dusty brown cloak, face half covered by a scarf. Not unusual. But what is unusual is that he doesn't approach the fountain. He stands just near it, watching, not in awe, not like a tourist, like someone who knows something. You keep scrubbing, casually, but your focus shifts. He finally steps forward. I heard, he says softly. There was blood in the water. You pause. Brush dangling in midair. You turn. No blood, just rust. He smiles beneath the scarf. That's not what people are saying. You straighten slowly. People say a lot. Few stay long enough to clean it up. He tilts his head. And you? You've stayed all these years. You don't respond, not because you're silent, but because you're calculating who is this man. He walks along the rim of the fountain with too much familiarity, not reverence, not fear, comfort, like he's walked it before. And then he says, "You know it goes deeper, don't you?" You narrow your eyes. What does? He stops, taps the marble with his knuckle. The system, beneath the system. Before Rome, you exhale slowly. The aqueducts. No, he says, what they were built on top of. You're about to respond, about to laugh. Maybe, or at least scowl, but then he tosses something into the basin. Not a coin, a stone. Small, smooth, etched. You lunge forward, nearly slipping, and snatch it before it sinks. In your hand is a piece of black slate, polished, cold, etched on its surface. In characters you don't recognize is a spiral. He nods once, then turns and vanishes into the alley. You stand frozen, stone in hand, breath shallow. You've never seen a symbol like this. Not Etruscan, not Greek, not one of those cryptic cult markings you sometimes find in temple drainage shafts. You hold it to the light. The spiral catches sunlight and glints faintly red. You tuck it into your pouch beside the strange wooden charm you found near the crack yesterday. You feel their weight together, small, but undeniable. You don't know what's happening, but something's waking up. The rest of the day unfolds normally. Sort of. People come, people go. You scrub, you sweep, you untangle a wedding veil from the overflow grate. You settle a fight between two fishermen about who gets to wash their eels where. Answer, neither. You refill the rag bucket, but your mind's elsewhere. You keep glancing toward the edge of the fountain where the man stood. You even inspect the stone he tapped. It looks ordinary, but sounds slightly hollow. You make a note in your private mental scroll. Stranger with scarf. Cryptic. Possibly unhinged. Possibly not. Aged stone. Investigating. Auxiliary pipe. Still stable. Spiral. Symbol. Unknown. Resembles dream I had in year 9. You don't joke much in that scroll. By the time the sun lowers again and you begin your evening rounds, the square has emptied. Just a few loiterers and one bored guard pretending not to nap against a column. You wait for the hush. That deep, steady breath. The city takes between light and dark, and you lean over the basin. The water's flowing clear, but you swear, at the very bottom, the coins seem to be arranged differently than before. A pattern, a spiral. No one touched them. You didn't touch them. And yet, you stand slowly, your reflection warping in the stream as the lion spout continues its endless arc. Tonight, you'll stay longer. You don't know why, only that the water is starting to remember things you never told it. And that should probably worry you. But it doesn't. Not yet. You don't sleep that night. Not really. You sit beside the fountain, elbows on your knees, candlelight dancing across the basin, and watch. Not for people, not for pigeons, not even for cracks in the stone. You watch the water itself. The surface is too smooth, too still, like it's listening. You trace the spiral in your palm, the one etched into the stone the stranger tossed in. Then the charm. You pull both out of your pouch, lay them side by side. Wooden circle, slate spiral, different materials, same weight, same feel. You don't believe in omens, but tonight you believe in patterns. And the coins at the bottom of the basin have arranged themselves again. Not exact, not symmetrical, but purposeful. You know, because you've spent more hours than you'd ever admit staring into this water. You know every scratch on the marble, every ripple in the spout's flow, every glint of morning light across its surface. And you know when something's changed. You lean forward slowly, hands on the rim. You whisper, not quite meaning to, "Is this what you wanted?" Nothing answers, but something shifts. A breeze rolls through the plaza, soft and cold. It brushes the candle flames sideways and lifts a single fig leaf into the air. It floats once, twice, then lands in the exact center of the basin, where it begins to spin. Like the spiral, you exhale. The breeze settles. The leaf drifts to the edge. The water resumes its hush, and for a moment, everything is still. You sit back and feel it, that peculiar sensation you get when you just barely avoided something, like walking past a doorway seconds before it slammed shut behind you. You don't know what it was. You don't know what it is, but the water knows. You rise, The city will be waking soon. The clamor will return. The buckets, the complaints. The why is the water too cold? Crowd, the babies dipping their toes. The offerings, the inspectors, the pigeons, always the pigeons. But for now, you're alone. You look around the plaza, one cat, one curled up drunk, a stray parchment drifting by, like it's late for an appointment. You smile softly. You gather your tools, coil the rags, tuck the charm and the stone back into your pouch. You stifle a yawn and run your palm once more across the marble edge, your habitual farewell to the basin before sunrise. And you whisper again, because maybe it matters. Thank you. The lion-mouth spout answers with a quiet gurgle. You chuckle and shake your head. Don't get smug. You sit one last time on the edge of the basin. Look up. The sky is warming now, shifting from navy to indigo to the soft pink of morning not yet announced. The sun waits just below the rooftops, hesitant. You take one final moment to let the silence seep into your bones. You won't get another one of these until tomorrow. Maybe, and maybe just maybe the water will shift again, or maybe it won't. You'll still be here. You always are. Because that's what fountain keepers do. They listen, they scrub, they patch leaks, they guard secrets they don't fully understand, and the world flows past them, never stopping. But the water remembers. The fountain exhales quietly now. The plaza begins to glow as the morning light returns soft, golden, and unhurried. You stretch once more, roll your shoulders, and let the cool air carry away the last of the night's strangeness. The bucket sits quietly. The rags, now clean, are folded just so. The lion's mouth flows with perfect rhythm, each drop echoing gently in the basin like a heartbeat at rest. Everything is calm. Everything is where it should be. You sit back against the column once more, arms crossed, legs stretched out in front of you. The stone is warm from the night's vigil, and your muscles have softened from the stillness. Across the square, a baker opens his shutters with a yawn. A child giggles in his sleep beneath a doorway. Somewhere, a lyre begins its morning tuning, plucking sleepy notes into the sky. You smile. The city hasn't noticed you. It never really does. But you've noticed it. Every echo, every whisper, every trickle of water through its ancient veins. The fountain murmurs beside you, and you let yourself listen. You breathe deeply, eyes half closed, and let the rhythm of water slow your thoughts. Each drop, a thread pulling you into stillness. Each ripple, a lullaby without words. The wind shifts softly. The pigeons are late today. You lean your head back, shoulders sinking into marble, and let the warmth of morning wrap around you like a cloak. There's nothing left to fix. Not right now, just the sound of flowing water, and the quiet promise that it will still be here tomorrow, and so will you. Rest. Now, the city can wait.